Okay, perfect. And I think we can go ahead and get started, and then we'll be recording so that we'll share this on our YouTube, and then we'll share the link in case anyone reaches out that they weren't able to enter due to the link problem.
Okay.
Okay, perfect. I welcome everyone. We apologize for the confusion with the links, but very happy to have everyone here. My name is Maritza Mata. I'm the Director of Education with the Association of Mexicans in North Carolina, and we host these workshops. We call them Leaders of the Future workshop because we recognize that high school students, college students, and graduate students may be current leaders. It doesn't mean they have to graduate from grad school before they become leaders. They become leaders as they're going through the education system. And so we do our best to support their professional development. And we've known Dr. Crumb for a bit, and we recognize the importance of discussing college success and supporting first generation students. And so we're happy to have Dr. Loni Crumb, Daniella Cotto, and Daphne Argandona. Sorry, Daphne. Uh, and from the College of Education at ECU, East Carolina University. And so thank you all for being here. Thank you for being willing to present to us about first generation college success. I know many of us are first generation, but there's always something that we can learn, and we can always learn how to support the first generation, the newer generation. So I know we all have different experiences, even though we may be from the same ethnic background or first generation. So we just want to best equip ourselves to best support college success. Thank you all, and I will leave it to Dr. Crumb, Daniela, and Daphne. Thank you.
Awesome. So I'm actually going to stop sharing for a moment, just to sort of set the tone for today's workshop, and I'll let you, let everybody in the room while we're just sort of setting the vibe. This will be a open discussion because we have our experiences, but everybody's walk through college is so unique. So I am a first generation college student. I didn't even know how Maritza knew, maybe because she's been to some of our presentations. And so although we have, as you notice, diverse backgrounds, we share that in common and being first gen. And she and I were just having some conversations about shared experiences. And I also teach about social and cultural diversity. And my other special interest is in student affairs, in which I invest in the success of first generation college students. And I teach social cultural diversity, and I saw that I have several students, but these two particular students who are of Latina heritage are also first generation college students. And I'm really just invited here as a supporter to facilitate the conversation. But I think it is so important to learn from your peers or learn from people who have found success that may have even more shared identities than myself. So today we'll be talking about the first generation college students from the view, sharing the stage for you all to share your experiences, either currently going through undergrad, what it took you to get to graduate school, or even for the graduates, such as Maritza and myself, who have been through it and in hindsight, and just sharing some tips. So that's how the conversation will flow. But just to let you know, we're going to stop the PowerPoint and we're going to come back here and we're going to encourage you to come off of mute and to really share in these experiences, because I believe that we all believe that people learn mutually and they learn through dialogue and conversation. And so we'll save some space to welcome that. All right. Great. So first generation college students supporting our success. And we will go to the introductions now. All right, Daniella, take it.
Hello, everybody. So I am Daniella Cotto. I am Puerto Rican and Italian, and I am also a first generation college student. I graduated from ECU with my bachelor's in sociology and decided to stay. And so now I'm a current graduate student in the counselor ed program. And I'm also serving as an AmeriCorps Care Corps member working at the ECU Community School, which is an elementary school. So I love being able to serve the community and just working with the youth there, which also stems from my interest in the school to prison pipeline and mass incarceration of minorities. So I've done a lot of research on how the public school system and incarceration work together as kind of a synchronous system that disproportionately affects marginalized communities. And so what I aim to do is to address those needs of marginalized communities through mental health, addressing the spiritual, physical, mental, and emotional needs of these youth so that we can continue to grow and open different doors.
Hi, everyone. My name is Daphanie. I'm a Mexican-American first-generation college student. I'm a current graduate student in the counselor education program at ECU, and I'm specializing in clinical mental health counseling. I graduated from Meredith College with a bachelor in psychology and criminology, and some of my research interests also align with incarcerated individuals like Daniella. So primarily incarcerated pregnant women in the Hispanic Latina community, and promoting healthy coping mechanisms to uplift those marginalized communities. I think it's important as one first generation, but also as a member, a part of a marginalized community, to help uplift those that need those resources, right? So we're lucky enough to be in a spot where we have an education right now, and we're currently being able to get a master's degree to eventually get all of the knowledge that we've learned and also share that with others.
Awesome. And so at this point, I'm going to stop the share because we've introduced ourselves and we want to know who's out there. We're in a cyber world right now. But if you would turn your camera on, come off of mute, tell us where you are on your college journey. Hi, Kathy.
Hi. Since nobody's talking, I guess I will go. So I am a white female, much older student, and I'm also a first generation student. Actually, my oldest child went back to college, went to college and finished before I did. So I started a long time ago, fell in love, followed that mess, and then anyway, finishing much later. But I am very interested in everything that we're going to talk about tonight because I have a lot of students. I'm a special education teacher now and in the counselor education program. I'm going to do clinical mental health and school counseling. And I have a lot of students right now who have the potential to be first generation college students. And I have a lot of students that, not a lot, I have several students who unfortunately at a very early age have labels that have been attached to them that have the potential to really limit their chances in the public education system. And I want to learn more about how I can help them through that and remove those labels and be successful.
And I'm just curious, so we can open it up for Daniella and Daphne. What type of labels are you speaking of?
Okay, so I have one student in particular that I'm thinking about that his father was incarcerated. And so he was incarcerated most of his life. This is a young student who's about 8 years old. His father was incarcerated for 7 years. Father's back in the picture sporadically, and now new behaviors are emerging, and those behaviors are looked at as preventative. Like he could prevent them, but he's reaching out for something. We have to figure out what it is. So he loves to tell me how he hates his father, doesn't want to be like his father, and then he'll have behaviors that are very aggressive, scare other people. And I'm seeing other adults in the building starting to label him as that kid. And so that scares me for him because he's just a kid. I also have several students who are Hispanic, and they have gone through or going through the special education system, and I don't believe that they actually have learning disabilities. In fact, I've exited a few, and I just want to be supportive and know what I need to be thinking about, working through, so I can be supportive for them as they go through school.
Man, that's really powerful. And I'm glad that I asked you, because those are exactly when we had the pre-conversations to prepare. It's kind of interesting. These are the things that we already talked about, that can sometimes prevent or propel kids, and what's our responsibility in this and helping them find that success. So thank you for sharing, Kathy. Other people want to introduce themselves, just jump in and tell us where you are on this journey.
I can share, Dr. Crumb.
6:16 p.m.
I
6:16 p.m.
first generation student. I attended TCU a few years ago, and BA in psychology, and I recently completed my master's of public administration from NC State. And this is very dear to me, like this information, because I, as the director of education at a Mexican, I work with several first generation, or most of them are first generation students. And I think a lot of the information is focused on the college application process, FAFSA, RDS. But I think we don't discuss enough about how else emotionally the support that they will need as they start this process, as they start this journey. For myself, it was a very isolating experience because I felt like I couldn't talk about it as the first one in my family, but I didn't want to seem like I was complaining about it because I know of the privilege that I had, and I was grateful for the experience, but I also didn't want to feel ungrateful to complain about the experience, and just also felt very alone. So I think that's what I'm interested in knowing how parents or family members or any person in their support system can better support first generation college students. In all aspects, I would say financially if we
Awesome.
can, but more importantly, emotionally too.
Absolutely. Thank you. Anybody else? Beatrice, I see you turned on your video. Are you going to be a brave one? We have quite a few people up here. Anybody else? We want to hold a time for introductions and sharing where you are on your journey, things that you hope you can learn. All right, well, I'm going to share this screen again, so don't be shy because I'm good at calling on people. All righty, share. All right. So we'll start the conversation. Well, we started the conversation, but we'll present the conversation tonight by drawing on personal experiences from our two co-presenters. We got together as a group, and just like Matita and I did, and just share about our experiences. So this list that you see in front of you are things that they had in common, and also their differences of being first gen. And so we will touch on some of these, and if there's some that you want to know about, feel free to come off of mute and ask the presenters to take a deeper dive or to expand on some of these experiences. I think a good place to start is sort of like what Martiza just brought up about not knowing what to do, because that's a real experiences. I will disclose, when I got into my master's program, I was a first gen. I went into a whole different program. So I became a doctor by happenstance because I did not know counseling, the difference between counseling psychology and counselor education. One is a psychologist and one is a counselor. And I was too embarrassed to tell people that I wasn't even supposed to be at that school or in that program. I just wrote it out as a first gen. a whole different program. But look, it just happened to, it stuck with it. It was meant to be. But I was so embarrassed because I didn't know about, I had a little bit of inclination about undergrad, knew nothing about graduate school. And just know I just got a whole degree and was not even supposed to be there. So with the ladies and I landed on this word being ambiguous. And that's kind of what I got from you, this not knowing what to do. And part of us, we are counselors. And so we want to name these feelings that we have. So that's a feeling of ambiguity, not knowing what to do. And as she said, not wanting to complain about it, but being kind of frightful of the unknown at the same time. So if you all ladies would kind of talk about that bullet point of family not knowing what to do, or even you not knowing what to do and being first generation and of Latina heritage.
Yeah, so I can go first if that's okay. My family is from Mexico, so my grandparents immigrated here. My mom was the first generation born here, but she unfortunately was not able to go to college. She had me when she was 18, had my brother at 21. So she had two under 21. My biological father is from Mexico. So my mom being that sole provider, also being a single parent, while I was growing up in elementary and middle school, it was just kind of like, okay, my mom always encouraged me, okay, go to school, get an education, go to get a good job, get a house, like have a family and stuff like that. But they kept like supporting us and everything like that, but I wasn't sure where to go, right? I didn't really have anyone to talk to about, okay, well, it's time to apply to school, it's time to do like college essays and stuff like that. I I really owe it to one of my friends in high school who his parents had gone to school and had their education, and we sat and did our college applications together, right? My resource was my friend who was in the same grade. So just having to navigate that, and even almost feeling like you can't ask for help because your parents aren't able to help you. So I think that's where it comes a lot with the first generation, and also handling like financial aid, right? I remember going into an office in financial aid by myself to see like, okay, well, what do I know? And what can I know? They were talking to me about loans and unsubsidized, subsidized, and I'm like, what does this mean? So kind of having to navigate all of that by yourself is very isolating, like you mentioned. So, but I think it's important now to, pay it forward, right? Or like help those students who are applying to colleges or in their undergraduate, ask me what a subsidized loan is and I'll help you out, right?
Awesome, awesome. Daniella, can you share about your experiences on that topic of family not knowing what to do, or you not knowing what to do either?
Yes. Definitely it's a very similar story to Daphne. I grew up with a single mom and she did not go to college, and I'm a middle child. So my older siblings, they did not go to a 4-year school. My sister went to like a technical school and went straight into a career to actually help my mom pay for bills so that it could take the burden off of our family. And so I'm grateful for that, because then that opened the door where I was able to go to college, but had no idea where I was going. Knew that I was supposed to do it. I was the smart sibling and I was supposed to go to college. I wanted to, and there was all this pressure, but I didn't know, where to apply, what to apply for, applying for grants or loans, when the deadlines and things to do. And I went to a school, it was a huge school in Charlotte, North Carolina. There was not time for my school counselor to sit down with me and explain. And I didn't really want to go ask, because it's a little embarrassing. Like, what do you, like, why do I not know what to do? And all my friends, they had, a lot of their parents knew what to do. And so for me, it was a lot of like researching on my computer, trying to understand. And then just kind of winging it. It was really by just winging it, and asking questions sometimes, and trying to learn to not be afraid to ask those questions, asking for help. I think that when you do grow up, the way I did, in the way of, you don't want to ask for help because you don't want to put a burden. I saw the burden that my mom was already carrying so much to provide for us kids. I didn't want to worry her with all these other things. And so kind of it's been a process of unlearning, I think, a lot of that, and unlearning like, no, I'm not the only one that I can rely on. For me, my resource was actually my boss, that I worked for. So I started working at 14, and she is also Hispanic. And so we had connected on that a lot, and just that experience. And she really took me under her wing at such a young age. And so when it got time, I was still working for her. It was like my junior year of high school. And she's like, okay, so like, what's up with college? What's up with this? And she hadn't been in school in forever. So she didn't really know what to do because things had changed. But she was like, no, you got this. You have to ask this person. And so it was encouraging to just have that one person that was like, ask for help. And I think it's so important that you find those people. You know, we talk about familial support, or just community support, friends, whether that's literally your peer, like Daphne said, her peer that's like her exact same age became that resource. You might not think that the people that you're around can help, or that they can't help, or they don't want to help, but you won't know until you try. And they might not help in the way that you think you need, I think, is the biggest thing that I've come to realize.
Wow. You said two powerful things that I want to definitely take the time to expand on. Number one, you said that this person who inspired you, right, was also another Hispanic woman, right?
Yeah.
And what does that representation mean? Why is that important?
Because I saw like, oh, like it's possible. So for more like understanding, my dad's side is my Puerto Rican side. So my mom is an Italian, she's a white woman. And so of course I'm really close with my titis and my abuelita, but they also didn't go to school. And so I'd never seen somebody who had done it. And she was, you know, my boss was a successful businesswoman who was doing everything, running a business, an accountant, doing all these things for her business. It was like, wow, like, okay. And then to have that same person recognize me and what I was doing at literally 14 years old. The way I got the job was actually, I was leaving, her niece was my friend growing up. And I left her birthday party to go babysit because I needed to make some money. And a month later, she called me up and was like, hey, I saw you left this party, and it broke my heart because you really left this party to go make money. Because she had stopped me and she's like, where are you going? And I was like, I need to go babysit. And she's like, I have a job for you. Like, do you want to work after school for me? Cash, because I'm young. So it was like, she's like, cash, like, don't, I got it if you need a ride. And it was this practically this stranger investing in me because she saw like, okay, like she wants to do something. And I would say that relationship, that connection, that opportunity changed the trajectory
Wow.
of where I went in life, 100%.
And so that just lets you know why representation is important, representation in leadership, because there's a trust. Whether you and this person share different things, there's a trust that you had with her, that to share and to talk to her about, and she saw your potential, right?
Yes.
And I think when you're from minorities, even if you understand just a tad bit about the culture, just a little bit about the culture, it sort of opens a door of curiosity and inquiry. I can appreciate you saying that. Daphne, did you want to expand on that any? About representation and why do you think that's important?
I definitely feel like representation is important. You know, I went to high school, and many of the like other Hispanics and Latinas were there, like they were doing their best to get through high school, but like really didn't have that support to like go beyond, right? So when I got into like my first undergrad class, right, I could count on my fingers how many Hispanics and Latinas were there, right? So it was just kind of like eye-opening to see that, especially kind of like coming from a place of not knowing, and then also being like, oh, okay, well, these people sitting beside me also don't look like me, right? So it's really important to like find those people that you're able to connect with. And in my undergrad, I was staying on campus, and we had this group with these women, and where it was mainly like a group about spirituality and stuff like that, but we also talked about being first gen. So we had like that community, right? Oh my goodness, like how am I supposed to navigate feeling guilty about staying on campus versus not visiting our family, right? Or visiting our family, right? That's also a whole nother thing we can get into. But I think seeing other people that are doing the same thing as you really, it can motivate someone, and it can motivate people just like now. Hopefully we can motivate and inspire people to keep going to school, right? Be that representation in these academic spaces, and also to advocate for them.
Mhm. And talk about strategies. I love to not only pose problems, but I love to pose solutions at the same time. I've already heard, hi, somebody joining us from the car, drive safe and listen. Um, but some solutions in the first discussion, not knowing what to do, what I kind of heard you ladies saying is, once you do go through it, now you are able to give back to your community, because some ask you about subsidized loans, ask you about the different type of colleges. Now you can give that to those in your family, that knowledge, that what we call college knowledge, right? Now you all have garnered that college knowledge and you can give back. So I heard that as a solution. Second thing, Daphne, that you spoke about, which I definitely took advantage of. I went to a predominantly white university, NC State. I know we got some Wolfpack up here. And in that, I found two small groups. I found my African American sorority, and I found a Bible study group. And I found my identities in those small groups that probably helped me stay successful in college. So you talked about that, Daphne, and that small group, finding your small group, your identity, your belongingness in that small group. Daniella, did you have any of those experiences with finding a small group within a larger environment?
Yeah, it took me a minute to do that. I was reluctant to at first. I was never like a big joiner in like high school or anything. Like I was not that. And so I quickly realized like, oh, I have to find this, and this is going to be what determines that for me. And so I found that just by going out, meeting people, and recognizing, oh wow, meeting people in my classes, forming those like study groups and things of that nature, and just having these conversations of like, oh wow, like you had to do that too, you've experienced that too. It brought a lot of encouragement, and I want to say like peace, because it was like, okay, I'm not doing this alone, I'm not the only one who feels that way. Which was really important. And then as I got older and like was at the end of my undergraduate career, I became president of sociology club. And so seeing those people, and a lot of those people were people of color. And so it became this place of what can we do with our background in, studying society to bring more of this on campus. And so that was extremely powerful. Yeah.
Awesome, awesome. And because I'm a peer researcher, affinity groups, or groups that share a commonality, it has been found to help people be successful, not only students, but even in a professional world. Affinity groups are so important, and something that I totally stand behind when we talk about success. All right, so I'm going to put the presentation back up again, and we're going to throw out another topic here. So we talked about working throughout college just a bit, family not knowing what to do. Is there anything that the audience want the presentation to the presenters to expand on? Okay, all right. So can we talk a little about generational wealth and generational debt? I'm really interested in hearing more about that one.
Yeah, I can kind of start. So when me and Daphne had kind of first started talking and figuring out where we shared experiences, we kind of landed on this topic of not coming from a place of generational debt potentially, and not having particular resources and wanting to build generational wealth. And so realizing like being a first generation college student, that was the first step and the first opportunity to do these things. I know for me, it was almost like a pressure of, I want to get an education because I know I'll be able to make more money. And then figuring out now how to save money when I've never seen a family unit of my mom didn't have enough money to put money aside to save for longevity, because she was focusing on the now, making sure we had what we needed. And so we kind of talked about that shift, and then finding resources for that, finding people to talk about those things with, learning, how to put money away, and the importance that holds to kind of break that cycle, and start something new, so that, our next generations, our kids, our younger siblings, have something to look at and to continue to, work towards.
Yeah, going off of what Daniella said, I feel like my parents were like, well, my mom particularly, she opened up a bank account for me, and she was like, okay, here's where you can start, like, holding your money. And I was like, where do I even start? At that time, I did have a job when I was in high school, but it wasn't like enough. And I'm like, okay, well, what do I do with this money, right? And as I got older, it's kind of learning how to, another thing is like managing your bills, right? I feel like my parents didn't really teach me how to manage bills at a young age. And I felt like I was alone in that. So right now, knowing, okay, I should have at least like 3 to 6 months of expenses, if anything happens, if I lose my job, if I'm sick or I get hurt, right? So those are things that I had to learn on my own, because even like my parents now are still living like from paycheck to paycheck, like when I was living with them. So I think it's important to kind of like open up that discussion, right? Not knowing, okay, well, what's a high yield savings account? Where can I go for a high yield savings account? What about investing? Maybe some people aren't like me in that space of like, okay, well, how do I invest my money, right? Just kind of like learning these things that particularly like Hispanic and the Latina community don't really talk about, or because I think it's very like, okay, well, my money is safe in a bank, so I'm going to keep it there, and kind of like risking it, like investing is too risky, right? So just like things like that as well. And also, like you mentioned, like being there financially for younger siblings. I'm the oldest of two, so I had to learn how to navigate college and go through to get my bachelor's degree, work throughout college, and then also in graduate school and working full time, but while in graduate school. So, but also being that resource for my younger sibling who is going to be in college in the fall, and being able to help him somewhat financially. It's not going to be a lot, right? But it's going to be something that I'm able to set aside for him.
Awesome. Again, I think that you ladies brought up something that I see, because I'm in these spaces a lot, that I see has come up, particularly when we're talking about working with minoritized communities, is the conversation around financial literacy needs to be intentional, right? It seems like that's one of my takeaways from hearing what you say. Yes, we are learning, we have made it to college, and we're going to make it through college. Now let's learn how to make college work for us financially and save. And back in my day, it was like the refund checks. We used to blow it. I think that whoever the president was, it kind of stopped there. But it was a lot of money at one time. We didn't necessarily always buy books, right? But yes, that financial literacy and first generation can go hand in hand in some ways. So when we think about workshops, or even future workshops, when we think about first generation students, maybe throwing in that could be useful. Thank you, ladies. Are there any questions from the audience or any topics that you want the presenters to expand on before I share the PowerPoint again? Okay.
I actually, Daphne, I know earlier before we like when we had first gotten started, there was something brought up about like how our families can support us. And I don't know if we really touched on that. And I would like to if we could. Okay, cool. So that was something that I definitely struggled with because that guilt of asking for help. But I realized that it is kind of on us as the student to tell our family like what we need, and recognize that for ourselves before we go to our family. I remember kind of like breaking down because I was so stressed. I didn't know what to do. And I had called my dad to talk to him, and I got frustrated because like, never mind, like you can't help me.
Mhm.
And it took me saying, oh wait, like maybe you can. And I was in such like a fluster, and he's like, okay, well, what's the next step? And just having that conversation. And so I think it's just like having the conversations with our family members of like, hey, this is hard, like I'm doing it and I'm super proud, I know you're super proud of me, and I'm so excited to be doing this. But we can't disregard the fact that going to college is hard. It's hard for anybody, like, and then to put on the top of the fact that we're the first ones doing it, of saying, it's explaining like, hey, it's not that I'm not grateful or it's not this, but saying I need just to vent sometimes, and I feel safe venting to you because you're my family. And I think that just like that listening aspect, or working through, there's been so many times that my parents still don't understand my degrees. But they will sit and I will present to them. Like in undergrad, I was nervous about like public speaking. I would sit on a FaceTime call with my mom or my dad and present to them. And then they're like, wait, can you go back and tell me this? And so they're helping, but also I think it's another point that we kind of talked about of like bringing that resource back to our families, back to our communities, where I'm able to kind of teach my family things that they didn't have access to. And so I hope that kind of answers that question, because that kind of stuck with me at the beginning. But.
Yeah, I love that you brought that up. I can throw something out there about my experience as a graduate student. And I had a baby. My family babysat, and it is so valuable. Probably more valuable than any type of money they could have ever provided me. They babysat when I had to do large papers. They babysat during my comprehensive exam. That they gave back to me and in the most momentous way. And it was so valued when they would just keep my child, sometimes for a month. So I could finish graduate school, because they maybe didn't have that college knowledge, they didn't have the finances, but keeping that child it made me the successful person that I am. Daphne, how about you? Anything that your family, what you got from them that contributed to your success?
Yeah, I feel like you know, my parents or my mom, she's very like, échale ganas, mija, you know, like keep going, right? It's kind of like giving us that motivation to keep going, that support to keep going. Even though like Danielle, I understand like our parents, like our research, honestly, they probably won't ever understand, but I can explain it to them and they'll be like, I'm so proud of you, like you're doing so great, right? Like providing that emotional support and just like that acknowledgement, because I think even now, like my parents are like, you know, you really did, like you got your bachelor's degree, like we're so proud of you, like you did the work, you put in the work and working like throughout school. So not alone just navigating college first, or like the financial aid stuff, but also working on top of that, right? Because college isn't free, you know, we have to eat, we have to in order to be where we are. So yeah, I would say like my family, they for sure with that emotional and like mental support, they were there for me.
Awesome.
They are there for me.
And yeah, and I agree. We got a comment in the chat. I'll just read out loud. I work in a community college system and work with first gen students. If you have any advice, please share. I think advisors could potentially collaborate with a financial aid department to help educate students and offer financial literacy workshops. So knowing first gen college community college, I think anything that we're sharing can really apply to whether you're in 2-year school or 4-year school. To be honest, what would you ladies say?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
I think having like, yes, like an advisor, financial advisors. I know some like banks. I just recently participated in one. It was a Zoom like this, and it was a financial advisor just talking about different investments, and things like that, and planning for the long term. And so I think it's not talked about enough at all. And so just even having those conversations as, you know, in your position in the community school of saying, hey, have you thought about this? You know, because it is something to start thinking about. I think the younger we start having these conversations, the more successful we're able to be. So anything at all, I think would be beneficial.
For sure.
All right, I'm going to get you ladies to tackle another important point. And very from a strength-based perspective, can we talk about fighting imposter syndrome and how you have pushed past that, you know, emotionally, psychologically? If we could have a discussion around that as counselors that you are, your counselors in training.
Yeah, I would say imposter syndrome, it still hits me now, right? It's kind of like, okay, well, it's kind of hard because as well, like we have an online program, so I'm not able to see everyone, but it's kind of like, okay, well, I'm here in this graduate program and none of my friends are doing a graduate program who look like me. So it's like, okay, you know, I'm doing this and it's also like, okay, wait, like this is big, right? This is huge, you know, going to a graduate school and like completing that master's degree, you know, no one in my family has a master's degree, right? I'm like the first grandchild on both sides to get a bachelor's degree and then even going to get my master's. So it's just kind of like, okay, well, like getting through that, right? You know, one, being proud of yourself. I think it's very important to be proud of yourself because I know for myself, you know, in the aspect of not wanting to ask for help, not wanting to um just do it all alone, right? It's important to be proud of yourself and, you know, take in those accomplishments to keep you going. So I think it's important to just be gentle with yourself and be like, you know what, I'm doing this and I'm gonna do it as great as I can and do my best. So yeah, that would be something that I would include.
Yes, I definitely relate. I think it's still something that I battle with. I think that's just normal. I think that's just how we are as humans. Of course, we're always going to kind of put more pressure on ourselves than everyone else. But I think for me, it was really becoming present in the moment. I think we talked about this kind of when we first had met. Going through undergrad, it was like, okay, I'm in here and I'm doing it and I'm knocking out task after task after task. And it wasn't until I was in my cap and gown walking across that stage where I realized, whoa, like, look at what I just did. And I think for that whole 4 years, I wasn't giving myself that credit. And I think you have to give yourself that credit. And I think sometimes you hear, we've just talked about, you know, the familial support and the support of everyone saying, I'm so proud of you. I'm so proud of you. And it means the world, but you really have to sit with that for yourself of like, oh, I'm really proud of myself. Like I did that. Cause I don't think when we talk about like our family they understand it's a lot. They understand it's hard, but they don't really know what that experience was like to do it. And so that's kind of lonely. And you have to sit with like, okay, no, like they are really proud, but you need to be proud because you really knew where you're at. And so I think just being gentle, having those conversations, for me, like I journal a lot and just like getting those thoughts out, putting out those like negative thoughts of like, oh, like I'm not supposed to be here. And then taking and sitting with like, wow, like this is what I did today. When you're in, you know, whatever career field you're going into, whatever you're doing, whether that's in class and you get something, it's like sit with that moment of, wow, like I got that moment, because those little things add up and then you realize, no, I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be at.
And
Yeah.
go
Oh,
ahead, Daphne. Go.
I had the exact same experience as you. So I was like, you know, knocking out these tasks and everything. And I got like an undergraduate psychology award. I kept going. And then graduation day came and I was putting on my cap and gown and I was like, whoa. Like, I was like, those are feelings that even now I still feel like I need to sit with, right? Being proud of myself and being like, wow, I did that. And just like reliving that because even as like a minority, we're not even supposed to, be in these spaces, right? So it's like breaking those boundaries, breaking those glass ceilings, and pushing to be in that space.
Yes, 100%, that the push. And I think also like advocating, having those conversations with the people you're around. For me, that was something that I've really had to develop and learn, especially as I got older and older, to enter these spaces, because I'm white passing. And so a lot of people don't recognize or know that I'm Hispanic. And then you hear something and I'm like, hold up. And so I think just, again, like having those moments where no, like this is a door that I'm already here. Like you thought the door was closed, but like I'm here. And I think that's something we have to just continue to do, and continue to have conversations, educate people, because that's all we can really do, is continue to do that and educate.
And I think it stands to go back to Kathy's question when we opened up this section about labeling and about deficit ideology, particularly of people who from minoritized populations or people with incarcerated parents. We can speak, they say you can speak life into people, or you can contribute to the labeling. And I think that starts, if we're dealing with this as an adult, what are kids dealing with? Oh my gosh, you hear all this stuff, and we have the term imposter syndrome, and we're trying to convince ourselves to celebrate our successes. So when we're younger, and think about our younger selves, I love this activity called writing a letter to your younger self. But some of us have the privilege of working with young people. What do we mean? What message or labels are we affixing to those younger people? That they are awesome, they can do it no matter what, to dream. Or are they stereotypes, or are we leading with our biases?
Yeah, we could also get into gender and socialization and everything, but that's like a whole different like topic.
Will say, kind of speaking on like working in schools, working with youth. I'm at elementary school, and in like the counseling role as an intern and working with an awesome team. And I would say, if you are in that space and you want to know, what you can do, I think it's really advocating for that student. So as a special education teacher at that school, recognizing it and reaching out to your counselor, reaching out to those other teachers who are casting those words, speaking that life onto that child, and say, hold up. And I think it's about calling people out, because that's not the case, and identifying, that's the biggest thing, identifying, like, look at what this child is going through. As an adult, we could go through this and you wouldn't handle it in a way that is graceful. So give this child grace. Before we go to punishing this child and reprimanding him and putting this behavioral track on him that he's a poor student and he's a behavior issue, of, hey, let's find him a resource, let's get him into counseling, let me do that before it becomes this other issue, is already doing exactly, like what you're supposed to be doing, being that advocate. And that's anywhere, you see that it doesn't have to be in a school, it could be anywhere with any situation, just not being afraid to voice when you see something that's not right.
I also think that listening, like in your case, you were speaking about like children and like the school system and everything like that as a school counselor. Also, like right now, I am at a private practice doing my internship. So a lot of people have reached out to me because I'm Hispanic, because I will listen, because I will understand and be empathetic. Half of my clients are Hispanic, and I'm so proud of that, because I'm like, you are the reason why I'm here, because I want to be that advocate and listen. Listening is super important. All of my Hispanic clients have been like, okay, like I feel like I just need to get everything out, right? I need someone who's going to listen to me and not judge me and empathize and understand. And I think that listening, especially being an active listener and just being empathetic, giving that unconditional positive regard, is very important in shaping like young people's lives, and also like older individuals who've never been to therapy. One of my clients, she's in her 40s. This is for her first time going to therapy, my Spanish speaking client. So that's like a whole different thing that we can get into later. But she's like, I feel like every time I come here, I can let out everything that I've been holding in. So it's very important to listen and be an advocate for your client.
Mhm, mhm.
I really love that you brought that up of not only is it our youth, but it's our older generations, especially in Hispanic culture, where those things are not talked about. Emotions and feelings are not something that are talked about in the family system, and it's meant to be, you know, kept inside. I've had that experience even with my abuelita, where when she found out I was going to counseling, she did not understand. She's like, what do you mean? Like, we don't talk about these things. And now she's like the biggest one where there's like a family thing. She's like, well, Daniella said, you know, therapy, go to therapy, you know, maybe she can help. And it's just like, wow. And like, even my little cousins that like, when I grew up, we were not having those kinds of conversations. She's like, can you call your titi and talk to her? And it's like, oh, wow. Like for that. And so I think that's so important to reach out to our older generations, because they didn't get that same thing that we're able to get.
Yeah, for sure.
Awesome. We have about 5 more minutes left in the session, and I really want to spend time addressing any questions, any topics that the ladies can share a little bit about their experiences in graduate school with the group, because we definitely are all first gen where we have a lot of knowledge to share in these areas, but this is definitely a smaller environment where we were talking about where you can really dive deep and ask these ladies what you may any inquiries that you may have. So if you want to come off of mute, if you want to type in the chat, we would love for you to ask some questions.
Dr. Crumb, I have a question that Daphne and Daniela, if y'all could answer. I think it really stuck with me about what your family did for you, where you were going in where you were in graduate school. I feel like maybe something that I heard from a student recently was that sometimes it's so difficult to even ask for the help, to be specific. I imagine that maybe someone in your position could have been like, is that too much of an ask to ask your family to take care of your child during that for like maybe a month or maybe even less? So I feel like maybe even providing options of how a family member can help. Like, how do you prefer for me to help? Do you prefer, like, do you just need a quiet space to study? Do you want me to take care of cleaning? Like, or I guess what would have been some things that you would have like, or that you would recommend for a family member to offer to help in a way to help a student?
I think you named a few, definitely like a quiet place to study, or just like sometimes I would have my older sister would sit on the phone with me while I was doing schoolwork, because like it's 2 a.m. and I have a paper to write and I'm exhausted. And so she calls me to say goodnight and I'm stressed, and she's like, well, can I just stay on the phone with you? And I'm like, oh yeah, sure, like that would be great. And I don't think she realized how important that was, but for me it was like, wow, because I probably like was gonna break down. So things like that. When the rarity that I would go home, my mom being like, hey, bring your laundry home. Or, you know, financially she couldn't give me money, but she would go through and she'd be like, here, I have these frozen, you know, I have this frozen fruit and I made this, let me pack you a little cooler bag, where like the little things are here. I got an extra thing of paper towels from the store, you take them. Was like, oh, it was such a relief, because then I could go home and know like, okay, I have a few meals in the fridge. I could save money for groceries this next week. I don't have to stress about finding what I'm going to eat, cook something. That were little, they weren't financial, and I didn't have to ask. It was just like there. Those were huge, I think, for me.
Anita, my dad used to change my oil on my car when I went home. And now I'm like, golly, that was so helpful. Like just to make sure his daughter, really couldn't offer a lot, but at least I know that her car is going to be working. And like that's what he had to offer in his role. And I also remember my mom used to cut out newspaper clips of college students and successful college students and mail them to me.
Oh, that's
That's so
cute.
sweet.
And those things, those small things hold so much value. And like you said, the food and the service, those things have value in supporting success. How about you, Daphne?
Yeah, I would also say home cooked meal, like my mom would be like, okay, well, like especially during when we're on a break, right? She'd be like, oh, okay, like come over and we can make some pozole for you. And she's like, okay, when I went back home, like here, I'll pack you something, guy, if you know, you know. But I was just like very, it's just like the food, the acts of service, right? And also just being a support system. I think being back home or going back home is kind of like, you have like that warm, inviting energy. And I think in the Hispanic and Latino community, you can feel that like presence, right? Like they're there to like help you and like serve you and in those ways through food, through the culture. So I think like that was really a way that my family has helped me throughout that, or just providing like those experiences, right? Visiting a family member, kind of just taking that stress like of, okay, I'm not a graduate student. I'm not like working full time right now. I am just my mom's daughter. I am just like me right now.
Mhm. Thank you for sharing. So as we close this session, I would like for you ladies to just give a takeaway to the first gens on the call. Just what do you want to leave with the audience this evening?
I would say échale ganas, right? We hear that often, but taking that to heart and being like, keep going, stay motivated, I I think that being there and representing like the Hispanic and Latina community, being there and just being in these spaces where maybe they're not meant for us, but we're going to be there and we're going to push to be there, right? Just keep motivated and also don't forget to look back and help those that are in need, right? Help each other out and just be there for our peers.
Yes, I love that. I would also say, just gonna add to that because that was so beautifully said, but I also think taking anything that you feel like has been like a hardship or has been something that's difficult, a challenge that you overcame, and realizing that that's going to be your greatest strength as you move forward. Those are not weaknesses. Those aren't things that are going to hold you back. Those are going to be things that set you apart in these new spaces that you walk into. So really hold your head high as you walk into these new spaces, because the experiences and the stories that you have to offer and bring wherever you go is highly valuable.
Mhm. Well, thank you, ladies, for sharing your experiences. I'm motivated. So if I got something out of it, I'm sure that everybody did. And much thank you to Mexican, to Ms. Mata for the invitation for this event. And the ladies definitely, if you would love to hear from them more, here are their email addresses. They're some of the best and brightest in the counselor education program, and it's an honor to share a platform with them, seriously. And I'm a very emotional person, but I'm just so proud of them. They are everything and the future, both places at the same time. So they were willing and really wanted to share their information because they hope to inspire someone to walk their steps, to finish undergrad and then to go on to graduate school and continue to create pathways for Hispanic and Latina youth and adults. So thank you again for your attendance, and thank you, Mexicon, for hosting this wonderful event tonight.
Yes,
Thank
thank you
you.
so much.
Please use us as a resource. If you need
Yes.
help, if you have a question, like feel free to email us. Like we definitely want everyone to feel like included and, feel like they belong in these spaces. So if you have any questions or concerns or something you just want to talk about, email us. And if
Yes.
anyone's in the Raleigh area, feel free to reach out. We can go get coffee or something.
Yes. Thank you, Daniela, Daphne, and Dr. Crumb. It's so important to have these conversations. I feel like sometimes we keep them with close friends or family members, and it's so important to discuss them and to, like Dr. Crumb said, to inspire and have that representation for graduate students, first generation. So thank you so much. And I really appreciate you guys sharing your emails and being a resource for students and adults interested in either returning or just kind of just in education. So thank you. I hope everyone has a great afternoon, and thank you for joining us today. And we hope to offer many more workshops for the community and to end the shared mission that we have. Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Bye.
Where will you be sharing the recording?
We'll
Can you
have it
end-
on.
Can you
Yes.
end the recording?
Oh, yes. Give me 1 second. Ooh. I have to exit the chat. Oh, there it is.